Hail, viewers. Today, I am going to be reviewing a poetic homily. Now, before I get into what this is, I have to say that this channel is a collection of different niches, so to speak. It's very widely varied in terms of content, all of it based upon commentary. True. However, there was a time when my channel was somewhat different than it was now. There was less of an emphasis on video games to an extent. And a lot of media content to an extent. Though it was highly based upon symbolism, reviewing symbolism in media content. Which I suppose it still is. But now it's a bit more focused on that, whereas before, I used to talk about a good deal of social and religious issues. Now, this video will be dealing with the latter, in sooth. This subject hath been one that I have engaged with before. However, during that time, I noticed that my viewership was not very good. The people who watched those videos, those early videos about different, types of religious and Christian type subjects, although they liked and appreciated the videos in most cases, some people did not like them very much, the viewership was very low. And so I am certain it is going to be low now, because all of my viewership is fairly low, except for the videos about the occult fan videos. I call them occult fan videos because I call all players who play Final Fantasy VIII and really sort of believe in the Renoa is Ultimisia mystery to be occult fans. That is my name for them, for us. But in terms of a lot of videos where I used to make that had to deal with religious subjects, I would have to say those received my lowest views. And because of that, I feel like I can just expand and sort of be unfettered in terms of my content creation in that regard. So I have come to believe now that I should create content in a certain way where every video is an expression of art, so to speak. You get the music, my personal opinion, my expression. And so, at this point, I am at the point in my YouTube journey, you could say, where I have come to that conclusion, where basically I just have to express myself in the best way I can. So I am going to be dealing with religious subjects differently now. The medium of poetry will be what I use to engage in homilies, so to speak. And I think that is a very good way to convey this type of culture. It can be explicit, but also it can be implicit. So that is what we are going to be doing today. I think that may be the best course for me, because many of you have probably noticed I have not been making very much Christian type content in terms of religious type content. And that is because many of the Christians who subscribe to this channel do not watch the videos any of the Christian videos in most cases. On a regular basis, maybe they watch the Artemisia videos. I do not know. For those of you who do not know, the woman you see in a lot of the thumbnails is from an older game, an old Final Fantasy game called Final Fantasy VIII. And eventually, she was also introduced into Dissidia NT and Final Fantasy Mobius. So that is video game stuff. And a lot of the people who are Christian who subscribe to the channel, I do not know if they are so very interested or involved in video games. Some of ye may be, in sooth. I, as many of you know, do like using early modern English words because I have, you may not realize it, a type of speech impediment regarding S's especially. And so for whatever reason, that type of Shakespearean Victorian flow, linguistic flow, it doth help me in certain ways that many of you may not understand. Now, if I'm just speaking regularly with people, in most cases I'm not using these types of words, if I am being honest. However, for whatever reason in regard to public speaking, and this is public speaking, even if it is over the internet, for whatever reason, speaking in this way doth help me. For whatever reason, me saying does, I have this, for whatever reason, if I say doth, I don't know. I'm able to recover my composure a bit more and just continue speaking. I know it's weird, but you have to think of it peradventure in this wise. If you're boxing, if you know anything about boxing or any type of, if you do any type of sport, there may be certain movements that doth seem that seem awkward. But for whatever reason, you will do these little movements or flourishes, and you notice you can recover in sort of, how should I say, you can prevent recoil. You can sort of regain balance a bit more by different stylistic things that you do. And for me, language is that way for me. It's kind of weird, but it's true. And I think that may be the case for many people. In a wise, it is kind of like how I could do this, or I could say, after every sentence or every few phrases. I have been known to do that. People have commented on some of my videos and said, you say you know a lot. Well, by saying a lot of these early modern English words, I'm able to prevent a good deal of those habits, because for whatever reason, I'm able to flow like this river you see before you. So, about the poetry, it's going to be based on certain verses. I consider this a good way to essentially sort of introduce culture to people. A lot of people may not be interested in a sort of expounding of religious information or philosophical information, but if I put it in a poem, people may be more interested. And so for me, this is just my logical conclusion. So let me get started. So the poem that I created was called Eternal Scales. I used semicolons in this case, some commas. This is more or less free form. I do not remember if I made it acrostic or not. Peradventure, no, I didn't make this an acrostic. An acrostic poem is when you have each letter spell something out on the side, and this, I'm not sure if I did that for this one. I really think I probably didn't. And if I decided to do that at first, I decided to just simply go with a free-form poem. basically the structure is very simple. The last word I make rhyme with the other one. I do not have necessarily any limit on how long the poem is. So, without further ado, let me begin. This is Eternal Scales. Every false balance stacked with greed, vile weights that cheat the poor in need. Each coin a sin, each measure lied, rot seeps from scales the Lord denied. Lo, vengeance brews for wicked hands against those who stain their stolen lands. Flooded high with blood, foundations grim, these cities raised on suffering's brim, iniquity's throne, soon to fall. Now patience waits, while judgment calls. God marks the captive, marks the slain. Let me adjust my microphone. Okay, maybe you can hear me correctly. I do believe my microphone, of course, is very good. It's a simple one that's USB cable, but it's fine. Where was I? Yes, marks the slain at that point. Darkness clings where darkness reigns, and holy souls stand pure apart. Yet still the sword must pierce the heart. Sinners beneath his towering scorn, oh, flee the wrath of justice born. Filth binds the filthy, shame on shame, prepared for judgment, for punishment's fierce reign, until the mighty day ignites, night for the lost, the righteous lights. So, this poem is all based on verses which we're going to review very soon. It's one of silent perseverance. My poems, I expect them to be practical. I expect them to be things you can use. I call this a poetic homily. That's a new thing that I'm doing. A poetic homily is a poetic inspiration, so to speak, based on verses or ideas that I personally have about the faith, so to speak. And so the poem is to help you and essentially teach the reader a lesson within a very small amount of words. And I think poetry can do that more than a great deal of other things. This whole poem, you could say, has to do with justice and a belief in that justice, ultimate justice, not the justice of men, not the justice of courts, not fallible justice, not justice that can be subject to error, but justice that which is outside the bounds of man to give. Justice that mankind could never give. And to some extent also a faith in this justice. A faith in this justice which goeth beyond the mundane and goeth into the realm of the preternatural, the supernatural, the divine, so to speak, you could say. And so, this is a very powerful poem, in my opinion. I think it can benefit ye, and so that was why I composed it. And so, the verses that this poem is based on, we're going to review them now, because there are a few. In sooth, there were a few. Now in the King James Bible, in your 1611 edition or other particular Bibles that have apocrypha, so to speak, you will read this particular verse in Ecclesiasticus 12:6. For the Most High hateth sinners, and will repay vengeance unto the ungodly, and keepeth them against the mighty day of their punishment. Now, in our view, let us speak soothfully. As Christians, as people who are actually reading the words and not making up things, as so many people do in many denominations. Sin is about what you do. Even when you have mental things, such as when Jesus says, you commit adultery in your heart when you look at another woman with lust. That still has to do with adultery. And that still has to do with doing something. And so, you may hear different things from different people, but sin is always you actively doing something. Even in regard to thoughts, those thoughts have to do with you still actively doing something that essentially is breaking some law of righteousness, so to speak. It has to do with you doing something. Now, Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy and Hesychism really did change a good deal of that foundational basis in the scriptures, to where you would think, well, you're not really doing anything, but they will say in their denominations, their particular groups, I am part of no denomination, I am simply a Christian just simply a Christian. I call myself nothing else. And if I use any term, it would be a quietist, a term of persecution. Miguel de Molinos, man who advocated for silent prayer, they called him and his followers quietists, and he was put into prison by the Roman Church for writing a book about prayer that challenged the conventional norms of the Catholic Church at that time, that was heavily regimented, and it didn't really allow people to express themselves in prayer and essentially go outside of ritual, and allowed the money-based system of Catholicism to essentially have a grip upon their lives. Well, that was nothing that the Catholic Church really appreciated, and so they tried Molinos, tortured him. He said nothing during the trial. He said nothing during the torture. They claimed that they essentially got a renunciation out of him in regard to the book about prayer that he wrote. But there's no proof about that because Molinos would not speak. He decided to adhere to the same principle Jesus took when the Romans had took him and had tortured him and were trying him for to execute him and essentially crucify him. Jesus said nothing to the Romans who were torturing him. He remained silent. And so Molinos did the same thing that Jesus did. So that is a term of honor. A term of honor is quietist. Christian is also a term of honor because it is a term of persecution. Christians were persecuted during the period of the early church. And so, for me, the honor of the word Christian, that of course mean a follower of Christ, is quite evident in the fact that the people that bore it with blood. Okay? When Jesus said, take up your crosses and follow me, he was very serious about that. The cross was a symbol of execution. And so, here on this channel, I do love to talk about symbolism. And so, it's very interesting. And the cross is also a symbol of fire, if you read certain books. And there is some things I want to talk about even regarding another Final Fantasy VIII video regarding a character called Cypher and his cross that he hath on his clothing. The Japanese authors of that story had enough symbolic information to know that the cross was also a symbol of fire. And I have read in books that it has to do with how you take two sticks if you're alone in the woods or something, and ancient people used to take sticks and used to rub two sticks together and you get fire. And so the idea is that is somehow connected to this idea of a fire cross, so to speak. Because of course, if I imagine the people thought that fire maybe were just literally coming from the sticks, they did not sort of have the concept of friction maybe that we do today. So the cross is in a sense literally a symbol of fire. But anyhow, viewers, for this poem, regardless of what your interpretation may be, I focused on what people do. Greed, invasions, taking things by force, taking things by the sword. And that also has to do with, let me see. That also has to do with, I was glad I had that open. Can I move this? I can move that right here. That also has to do with you as a Christian being a peacemaker. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. And it has to do with the sword. Taking things by force in the world with the sword. Then Jesus said unto him, Put up again thy sword into his place, for all they that take up the sword shall perish with the sword. So, as a Christian, your prerogative is not to perish with the sword. Your prerogative is to follow the words of the Lord and to be a peacemaker, for they shall be called the children of God. And of course, you as a Christian want to be a child of God. So, it is very logical to say that you do not want to take up the sword. You want to avoid the sword. So, the sword is the way you get things in the world. And the world is not what you love, because the world is temporal, the world is physical, the world is carnal. You don't want that. Every false balance is stacked with greed. It's a false balance. The Lord doth not like false balances. So you have vile weights that cheat the poor in need. Evil, greed, these types of things. Each coin is sin. Each one is a sin. Each measure laid. You're laying these measures up for you. Rot seeps from the scales. It's stagnation. It's carnal. It's worldly. It's the red pottage that Esau taketh, because he is hungry, but it cannot feed you, fill you, substantiate you like living water can. Some of these are a bit more advanced, but we are reviewing culture. We're giving you culture here, in sooth. Okay, let me see. If the screen went out on your end, my TV screen is connected to this computer. Anyhow, I hope the screen didn't go out for you. It did for me, but I have corrected that. So, lo, vengeance is brewing for wicked hands. So a false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. Justice is the Lord's delight, and only he can give it, because he is the ultimate arbiter of justice, because there's justice men cannot give. There was a story, a news story. Or rather, it's not really a story because it really happened, but there were two boys of the white social status who apparently were around the boy of the black social status. Very young boy. He was younger than them. I think he was like about 9 or 8 years old. These two boys of the white social status took the boy to an area that essentially it was near some concrete or some area. I forget what type of area it was, but it was on the news. And I found the news article. They took the boy and they drowned him. And these two boys of the white social status were about 11 or 12 or something. They were older than the young boy. Now they were tried and convicted to juvenile. Of course they cannot receive a full sentence from a court of law. And so we can all see the injustice that happeneth in the world. And of course, the judge himself is a person of white social status. And as a person of the black social status, we have to deal with a lot of things of this sort, involving crimes of pure hate, or even if it is not a matter where you have two different social statuses, two different complexion-based social statuses involved, you still have crimes that you say, are these boys and, people who've committed all manner of crimes, they may just get a few years. Even adults, they may just get a few years. And so there is justice that men cannot give. There's justice that if you think about it long enough, you think this is not justice. The parents are happy because their child does not spend their entire life in prison. But there's no real consequence. You're in juvenile for a few years. That's just one example. And there are many examples. World leaders, who commit all manner of crimes, war crimes and the like, get away with so much. And it seemeth as though there's no justice. Well, there is in Christians a belief in divine justice. That is sort of part of our Weltanschauung, that's to say worldview. That essentially, even if men do not give the justice, there's a prime mover, or prime speaker rather, who hath spoke all things into existence. And he shall deliver the ultimate justice, even if it is beyond this world. So faith itself is based upon belief. To believe meaneth to accept. And so this is simply something we accept. It is not something based upon any sort of empirical or sort of evidence-based understanding. This is just the belief. And so for us, the belief is as strong as the mind is, or rather the belief is sort of fueled by psychic, your own mental, acceptance of something. So belief is acceptance, and essentially Christians believe that there will be justice. It may not be men who give the justice. There's the belief that those that do evil, committing actions that are breaking the laws of the Lord, shall receive justice. And the belief is that the Lord does not like a false balance. So it's very interesting, in sooth. Okay. So we have, he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. In sooth, if I'm to speak as a man of the black social status, that verse is one of the most important for us. Is Revelation 13:10. I do not know if I told you this one. If I told ye this one, Proverbs 11:1. That was the one we reviewed before. So, God marks the captives, God marks the slain. And basically, filth binds to filthy, shame on shame. I sort of gain inspiration from that. Alright? In other words, there's going to be judgments. God keeps note of those who are in captivity. God keeps note of those who are slain. And our belief is that he is going to establish this justice if not in this world, in the next. So that is our belief. Well, we say the next, but, essentially beyond this life. Let me put it that way. Our next verse is, woe to him that buildeth a town with blood, and establisheth a city by iniquity. Very important one, especially for those of us of the black social status. Many of us of the black social status are, not only do we have, I just say it, many of us have American Indian We have American Indian blood in our families. Excuse me, I had to blow my nose. But many people do not know that American Indians were also enslaved. Many people we have reviewed on the channel the matter of red, of skin that is red, so to speak. We have talked about that idea of red skin that is often talked about, Indian red, so to speak, the chestnut color, and its relation to people of the black social status in the United States. American citizens of the black social status do have that lineage, as well as the African lineage that was brought here, though the African lineage that was brought here were far less than those who were brought to Brazil, Mexico, and many other. I'm not sure if Mexico was that high, but I know Brazil had a high population of African slaves. The United States, I believe, as far as I know, had, what was it, 150,000? It was over 100,000, I believe, but it was not nearly as much as the slaves brought to South America in sooth. However, I would say that for many of us, the idea of, the land is stained with blood. Whether you're talking about African people, Africans of the black social status, or American citizens of the black social status. American citizens of the black social status are people who have, in many cases, both of these histories. They also have white social status ancestry as well, in many cases, and very broad, oftentimes very, very broad lineage. That is very interesting, though. I have to say, the American Indian descent is certainly there. Many people do not know about it, so we have to sort of go into detail and explain things to people. We have to explain them about the color of Indian red, because people think, oh, it's just red. They're red people. No, Indian red is literally chestnut. Indian red is chestnut. That is where the redness of the skin, that talk cometh about. It's a ruddy red. It's the ruddy redness of something that looketh like maybe a cow or a horse or a donkey. It's that type of red. It's a ruddy color of red, kind of like Solomon, where you have in the book of, the Song of Solomon, it saith, he's dark and dazzling. When you read the New Living Translation, people say, well, this is different from the King James translation. Well, of course, because they are translating the word tazak in its proper context. So it is interesting to sort of look at different translations. When they say it's dark and dazzling, and they use the Hebrew word for red. No, they're talking about ruddy red. He's red and ruddy like the redness of a chestnut. The redness of some stones that are dark, but they have a reddish tint to them. And you can find many people, American citizens of the black social status, that look just so. As well as Aboriginal people from Australia, people from Fiji, Aboriginal people from Fiji, and many different indigenous groups of people. Whether you talk about the Manik tribe in Thailand or the Etude tribe in the Philippines. People of the black social status are in all the world, in sooth, though the world itself made the black social status. So for us, the idea that the land can be stained with blood, and there's justice to come for those who take the original people of the land, slay them, take the land, and build a land of iniquity, a city of iniquity upon it, a town of iniquity upon it. this to us is very evil. Okay. Now, we have, he that is unjust, let him be unjust still. And he that is filthy, let him be filthy still. And he that is righteous, let him be righteous still. And he that is holy, let him be holy still. Revelation 22:11. Very interesting. Night for the lost, the righteous lights. The idea is that if you're going in the way of evil, of wrongness, you're lost in the night. And for the righteous, there's lights. You have the right course until the mighty day ignites. So it's very interesting. This is very important, I think, for those of us who meditate upon the injustices of the world, and we wonder, these people are so evil. And sometimes I think it is better for us to say, let them be evil, let us go in the right way, they can go in the wrong way, and we can stay the course that we believe in, and they can stay the course that they believe in, and they will receive their reward, and we shall receive our reward. Or they will receive their punishment, and we can receive our reward. And we believe there will be someone who will give the punishment, and it will give the reward, and who will measure and judge everyone. So these are very simple concepts that have to do with belief. They all have to do with belief. For those of you who may come to this channel or come to this video and you're wondering, why are you talking about belief? It's just things you believe in. Everyone believes in something. Everyone has a Weltanschauung, that is to say a worldview. Everyone has dogmas, that is to say principles, concepts that you accept. Tenets that you accept. Everyone believes in something, so everyone has dogmas, everyone has beliefs. In sooth, I forgot to use my hath instead of my has. Because, as I say, I don't particularly like to use those words with S's in it. I try to avoid them in sooth. So, let me see here. With one more. That ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven, for he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and the unjust. So that was very interesting, because this particular verse I really liked personally, because I said, that verse, just fierce rain, punishment's fierce rain. So that sort of distinguishes, kind of incorporates that to a certain degree, I think, because rain is going to rain upon the just and the unjust. But for me, I kind of call the punishment's fierce rain. It's really good. It's really interesting. So this is a new experiment. It's the poetic homily. A homily meaneth a sermon, so to speak. So in this wise, I can do things in a very artistic way, but at the same time get the point across. So I will say, I do hope that you appreciated this in sooth. This was a new thing. It hath been a long time since I started doing, since I did religious content. Because I used to, but I stopped because the people who were, it wasn't necessarily fun because people weren't watching it. So now I'm going all out in regard to artiness. So this artsiness, alright? So we're just going to poetry now. At this point, and I'm going to do my intellectual thing, and I'm not even going to pretend to be essentially, how should it be said, I'm not even going to pretend to sort of be, mundane. I'm going to be very obscure and, not necessarily obscure, but I'm going to be very taboo, so to speak. We're going to do things differently. We're going to do things in an interesting fashion. As always, I have to innovate, because this is a small channel. So I have to make these videos jewels in the rough that you find, and you say, wow, I found the jewel in the rough. It's a small channel, it's a video with not too many views, in sooth, but it's so very interesting. Alright, so this was fun. I would like to say, as always, may you be blessed, and farewell, viewers. Alright.